I want to say happy full moon because I'm recording this actually just as we're tapering off the full moon in Gemini energy, but it's a forecast on the new moon upcoming in Capricorn. I just noticed as I was pushing record that I have a very Gemini backdrop here where I have half of the side in shadow and half of the side in light or black and white in reality. And yeah, that's very pertinent as I am a Gemini, and I would really like for you to give any feedback on how you've experienced this last full moon. And just a reminder that it's always like the energy leads on to the next energy. So there's something very specific in the full moon in Gemini that gives us a lead up to the Capricorn new moon, and that is Mercury's connection. And actually Mercury is quite pertinent at the moment because he rules the full moon in Gemini, being the ruler of Gemini, and he's soon to have, just after the next new moon, not long after that, he's having a retrograde process. Now we know Mercury retrogrades a lot, but each time where it retrogrades starts to eke into our chart, eke out what we need to be focusing on and learning from. So I just want to share my screen and we will jump into some of the energy. And I just want to quickly, before we actually look too hard at this moon, which is the new moon here, I want to jump back to the full moon chart and just notice here, Mercury, I'll just blow this up, Mercury, who looks like the little person with the horns on or wings, that is Mercury. Mercury is our thinking process. And Mercury is at 1 degree of Capricorn. So that means that we're thinking around that degree point. Wherever that is in your chart makes it more pertinent to that space in your life. So these charts are drawn up for South Africa, where I'm living. So the houses where you're seeing the signs sitting is not really relevant to you unless you live in South Africa. But when you take that to your own chart, you can say, where is Capricorn in my chart? And then you go and relate that to, is this energy, do I have anything in the early degrees of Capricorn? If you have planets there, it's going to be more pertinent to you. But if you don't have planets there, it's what space? For example, in my chart, that is in the 6th house of service, of health, of how I do daily habits and routines that are good for my health and are in service of the greater good. So now I think, how am I thinking around those things? What is triggering? Now, why this is important, because this is the full moon in Gemini that we're looking at here, and why this is important here, where we see the Mercury at 1 degree of Capricorn, is when we jump now to the current moon that we're talking about, which is the new moon in Capricorn. Look at where the sun and moon are, the same place that Mercury was sitting at the new moon. So this gives us an indication of how the precession of the planets is really moving to prepare us, and how that happens. That grand design is just such a really interesting space for me in terms of how we what goes before and how does that lead on to what comes after. And it's not always the same. Mercury is not always ahead of a new moon in this way, but when he is, what is that teaching us? What is that facilitating for us? And I just find patterns and rhythms very interesting. And when we can learn how to use those, we can get a little bit more clarity. So if you think about, how was I thinking at the Gemini full moon? Now, that would have been quite an interesting journey, because Gemini is a very scattery, sort of thinking many different things kind of sign, ruled by Mercury. Mercury in Capricorn at that full moon would have been trying to bring us into order, write a list, get your focus, calm down. Whereas big full moon right next to Mars would have been a bit like, wow. So how did that impact you? Then you go, okay, as I drop into the new moon in Capricorn, when there is now sun and moon coming to that space, I'm going more inward, because that's what we do at new moon. I'm going more inward. I'm feeling more intuitive, insightful, in the dark, in the shadow parts of myself, in the nighttime, in the winter. We can look at it symbolically in many ways. How does that feel now? And what is reflecting again from 2 weeks ago when I was having the full moon in Gemini? So that's always an interesting thing to look at. And I just wanted to show you how you can look back. And of course, we're looking back at what was happening 2 weeks ago with that Gemini full moon. That gives us an indication, but we also look at our own chart. When we look at our own chart, we can see how that impacts our imprint, our blueprint. Because where the planets were at the time of your birth is your potential, your highest potential for good or harm. Where am I strong? Where do I need to work? What is easily activated or triggered in me? And what do I do with that? And of course, this is always a choice that we have. What do you do with that? There is no chart that is a good chart or a bad chart. Sometimes you will see a chart that seemingly is like a terrible chart, and yet somebody has done wonders with it. You will see a chart that seemingly is so wonderful and lucky and easy, and the person, the native, as we say, the native of that chart has done nothing with it. So it's all really in our own hands. We decide what we do with the star stuff. That is us, that stardust. How do we take it and how do we use it for our greatest good? There is challenging stuff in every single chart, and there is blessings in every single chart. The potential for challenge and blessings rather than it is actually so. It's very much how you take it and what you learn from it. And every single thing, be it a good, easy aspect or a more challenging one, has its shadow and light parts. So that's really important to remember. And when we get to Capricorn New Moon, it is a cardinal earth sign. It's a really strong point of, I am now going to be the leader. I'm going to be autonomous in my decisions, in my build for my future. What am I building? What do I want? What is the structure that sits there now? And is that structure safe and secure, or is it crumbling? And how do I fix it? Do I have to fully demolish the building and start from the foundations again? Or can I just repair certain foundations? And this is very personal to each of us. Like I say, if you know where that sign of Capricorn is in your chart, that will be helpful. So we also have Venus and Mercury in the same sign, as well as Pluto, who's been in Capricorn for a very long time, and he's going to start dipping out into Aquarius for the first time in March 2023. That's a really big shift, and we're really going to feel that. So this is almost like a part of the culminating energy while we bring all the personal planets that in this case we've got Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus. That's 4 of the 5 personal planets, just Mars not with them. We bring all of those personal planets which really impact our personality to meet the old giant, very far distant, cold Plutonian energy for not quite the last time, but coming in for his last time being completely Capricornian for another 250 years. For once he starts dipping into Aquarius, the energy is going to begin to shift. And Pluto is very transformative. So this is, again, an even bigger spotlight on the transformative process of being able to rebuild our lives in whatever way we choose as we come into New Moon in Capricorn at the early degrees. It's like step 1, look, 1 degree, step 1, what do I need to do? Let me write a list. Let me look at what's faulty. Let me look at what's not faulty, because not everything in our lives needs to be demolished. Not everything in our lives needs to be destroyed. And now we need to get discerning. Earth is nothing if not practical. So let's get practical. Let's look at the reality of the situation, not just idealizing. And Pluto has no fear about breaking stuff down, making something that seemed like a big successful venture into a small pile of rubble, and building what seemed like a tiny little idea into a big successful venture, be that business, relational, whatever it is. So even our health. So this is it feels like the precipice of a very strong beginning. And if we use it well, we're definitely going to be able to get clearer and therefore get more efficient. Capricorn is efficient, get more efficient at how we rebuild. So we don't have to be all dithery and all over the place. Mercury is almost at his retrograde point. He's at 21 degrees here, and he's going to turn retrograde. I think it's 24 degrees. So he just gets a wee bit further, and then he's going to turn retrograde. So he's going quite slowly, and Venus is actually going to catch him up, which normally Mercury is faster. So that's also happening at the moment. Venus is catching up to Mercury, and that will come just after this moon, this full moon, new moon. I'm actually just going to show you. If you go into, I'm going to share a different screen now. If you, because remember, I'm talking a lot about AstroSeek, which is a thing I love. If you go to Astro Tools and you come down here to retrograde planets, I'm already actually in that. You can come here and just click on Mercury, and it'll take you to Mercury's retrogrades for the year. So you can see here on the 29th, Mercury will turn retrograde at 24 degrees and 21 minutes. Don't worry too much about the 21 minutes if you're just learning. 24 degrees. And then he will go direct, retrograde ends on the 18th of January at 8 degrees. So that can also, I'm going to jump back now to our chart. So that also tells us he is going to be 24 degrees and he's coming back to 8 degrees. So if you have anything in that space, that's getting extra focus, extra work, extra revisiting, extra rethinking. I'm hoping to do a video on that. But just that Mercury is quite involved in this new moon, as at the full moon that he was in charge of, he triggered this new moon space. You might see it like a flower bed, and he went in there and he loosened the soil, so that as the full moon and as the sun and the new moon enter there, and they enter basically at the same time, the sun enters and the next day the moon joins him and has a new moon. So he doesn't have time to get his feels into Capricorn, and the moon comes in, she ushers in this really big emotional wave and embodying energy, and let's make this real. And the moon, she also, in mundane astrology, which is where we look at a chart that's not our birth chart, but a chart of, in this case, the new moon, she represents the people. So the people are coming in with the feeling of wherever she is. So that Capricorn feeling, the people want order, the people want security, the people want surety. And the sun is like, right, he's the king in the sky. He's going, okay, come to me. Tell me what it is that you are needing. He's listening. He's trying to build. So that's also a really nice feel for me, especially with Mercury, because he was there before. He was there at new moon when Gemini was all over the place, thinking this way, that way, creative ideas, spiraling perhaps. And then now we get here and sun and moon come here, and all those thoughts that have been loosening in the soil, they come together with the sun and the moon. We could see that as sunlight, which we need for things to grow, and moon is water, which we need for things to grow. So we can feel this beautiful potential for growth. And prior, although not on that specific full moon in Gemini, but prior to the moon, sun and moon getting here, Venus was also there. So after Mercury was there at full moon, Venus arrived, and she started to put her values in the soil, her passion and love and musy energy into the soil. So the soil has been beautifully prepared just before sun and moon arrived there. What is it that we want to grow? One more thing I just want to mention before, I don't want this video to get too long. I can get carried away being a Gemini myself. But one more thing I really do want to mention is that this 1 degree of Capricorn is square, cardinal Earth, square to 1 degree of Aries, cardinal fire. And you may see that Jupiter has just come into that. He's at 0, but that's still a square. They're well within orb. So that is a very strong point of change. Jupiter makes things bigger. He's moved into this cardinal fire, the first sign of the zodiac, the ultimate initiating spark of life force. And whilst he's doing that, sun and moon are trying to have this intimate space of building and creating and tilling the soil and dropping the seeds. And Jupiter's going, I want this now. I'm ready for this now. I'm bringing drive and energy and passion, and now. Jupiter, Aries in shadow is like head first, think later, or pull the trigger, ready, shoot, aim kind of energy. So we do have to watch we don't jump the gun. because we will feel that energy of bursting forth, and we'll start writing the list. We'll start looking at the structures, and we'll want to do it now. But to be fair, this is the 23rd of December. It's actually still a time where we're kind of on holidays. For most of us, we are around family or friends, or we're very busy in work because we work in seasonal jobs. It's not really the time to burst forth and work on the new future. It's the time to seed, to settle in with those ideas, and we will move forward with it. And Jupiter is going to be in Aries for quite a long time now. So we don't actually have to do it immediately, but we may feel the urge. So I would say just manage that, especially as Mars is still retrograde. And that's our doing. And he's going, I'm not ready to do yet. I'm still thinking about certain things. So if you feel I have to do it now, that's it, done. I'm making a decision. I'm taking action. Probably you'll have to come back and do it again because Mars retrograde in Gemini and just the timing of it. But feel that, almost imagine you could bottle that enthusiasm, that energy, by taking the time, by taking the break, by taking the step outside of your normal routines, so that you can settle in to the seeds, to the ideas, water and sunshine for yourself and your seeds. Okay, if you live in the southern hemisphere, water and sunshine is kind of part of the time now. Sun and sand. I live in a coastal town, so the sea and the sun this time of year. Obviously, if you live in the northern hemisphere, sunshine is not as strong. We will also have just had the summer in South Africa, in the southern hemisphere, or winter in the northern hemisphere, solstice point, which is the longest day or the shortest day, depending on your hemisphere. So we are definitely in this interesting place of going in deep, because new moon is like a winter, which it is in the north, and Jupiter entering into Aries has a much more kind of fun in the sun, burst forth, get it done kind of vibe. Oh, I'm a poet. Which is more southern hemisphere. So we'll have again that kind of feeling of both. And it may be easier to do the part that is seasonally more in your hemisphere. So just manage that, play with that, feel into it, and see how it shows up for you. Okay, I think before I wax lyrical for too long, as I sometimes do, I am going to sign off and say thank you very much for watching. Remember that I can do personalized readings for you, astrology, tarot, oracle cards, whatever, healing and combinations of these to help you to sort out things within yourself more personally. And thank you for all your likes, shares, subscribes, comments, follows, all of the above. Have a beautiful festive season, whatever you celebrate, and I hope to see you on the next forecast. Thanks very much.